Sorry, I was just getting nervous now. These can be like the bloopers. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. 3, 2,
1. Hello, everyone.
Hello, and welcome to
The Pillow Talk Pod. We spent a long time
coming up with that name.
Coming up
name
with
is
that
still
name.
in progress, but
Yeah.
I think it captures the vibe of what we want to do.
Yeah, so
We're in our PJs.
We're in our PJs or / comfy clothes, and these are when we have our deepest chats, isn't it?
All the best talks happen at a sleepover on your pillow.
Yeah.
So it's the Pillow Talk
One-on-one chatting, but
Yeah.
we've decided to invite you guys along with us because I think we have a lot of good things to talk about.
I think we're really interesting, yeah.
I think probably no one else thinks we're
No.
interesting, but we think we are.
We are the centre of our own universes, which kind of links to today's topic. But first, I am Isla.
Yes, and I am Lucy. Just Isla, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm 22, so I've just finished my master's.
Yes.
I finished my master's a couple months ago, and I was studying curation of contemporary art specifically. So my dream is to work in a gallery, or just be a part of the art world in some way. So that's kind of, I feel like that sums me up.
Yeah, and she's really good at makeup as well.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if you can see on the camera, but she's very good at doing eyeshadow and hair care, that kind of stuff. Like,
we nearly started with my rollers still in, which would have been really
I think
embarrassing.
it was a stress moment. And I'm Lucy, and I am an aquatic ecologist. So I've just recently started a job after finishing my master's, and I'm 23. So I'm a bit more on the kind of sciencey, environmental side, and Isla's a bit more on the arty side.
Mm-hmm,
So we've got a nice bit of
I'm
kind
more
of different-
humanities, you're more sciencey.
yeah, humanities versus sciencey
for sure.
kind of vibes. But we're besties, and we've been besties for many moons.
Many moons, at least 6 years.
At least 6
How
years,
weird is
but we've
that?
known each other for maybe 10.
No, we've known each other for 12 years.
We've known each other
I
for
did the
12
maths.
years, but the
Because we met.
second half of that 12 years, we've been like
Joined at the hip, pretty much.
joined at the hip. Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
We're going to use this podcast to talk about, I don't know, problems and ideas, things we're just thinking about, because that's what happens at a sleepover. You talk about the meaning of life through anecdotes and
Exactly.
how you see the world, and I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So,
And things that maybe you guys can relate to as well. Maybe you're a teen, maybe you're in your 20s, but I feel like the things we talk about are very relatable. So maybe we should just dive right in before we bore everyone.
yeah.
Or
more
the
information about
probably
ourselves.
one or two viewers watching this who is probably our friends. So
Yeah, this is episode 1, by the way.
this is
So-
episode 1. Yeah, hence all the kind of nervousness surrounding it.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm
I'll
just hoping that
Shuffle close to the microphone.
I'm just making sure that your voice can be heard, Ida.
Yeah, that's good.
So today's topic is
Isolation, individualism,
pardon me.
Jesus.
Sorry.
Okay. We're going to be talking about isolation, independence, and the death of community.
Yes.
And because we were thinking about doing our first episode on friendship, which we probably will come to at some point. But
Yeah.
for now, I think talking about community and friends in that way is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, and more I guess more kind of importantly, the issues surrounding isolation and how isolated that we can feel as people.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this earlier, how I think social media has affected us in such a way that makes us more isolated. So, you can see so much of the world, but in some ways that makes us so much more isolated.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people talk a lot about like the male loneliness epidemic, and you talk about it like rolling your eyes because
They
kind
did
of
it to
feel-
themselves.
They did it themselves. It's a prison
Yeah.
of their own
Ugh,
creation.
man. Yeah.
But Gen Z I'm sure there are some statistics on this, maybe not, but we are a pretty lonely generation, and not in a way that a generation ever has been before, because like thinking of
Because we've got
The
we
baby-
do everything online.
thinking of baby boomers or like older generations, their loneliness came from not being able to talk about their feelings, and also being trapped in like small towns, or they knew the people they knew. For our generation and future generations, it's this complete opposite, where we can know every single person online, and we are getting so much more used to talking about our mental health and our feelings, but somehow still it's
more isolated than
it's
ever.
more isolating.
Yeah. I think being able to talk about feelings more is a good thing, but I think, and maybe I'm just not anti-social media, don't get me wrong, I use Instagram, TikTok a lot, but I think I will keep up with people. Maybe I'm wrong here, but you can chat to people constantly online, and you can chat to people, and you can hear all these different stories and all these different kind of ways that people are living, which in some ways is so amazing because you can keep in touch with so many people and you can learn so many different things. But at the same time, it kind of not makes you feel really small, but it like kind of.
Well, it's that thing, isn't it, that I am one person in a massive universe, and either you look at that and you like feel the weight crushing down on you, or you go, I am one person in a massive universe.
I am one in a million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can
There's
do
so
what
many.
I like because
Exactly.
I'm not the centre of the universe. But I don't know, there's a double-edged sword there. And I think for me, for social media, I recently deleted Instagram and TikTok, and I still go on both of them sometimes. I will re-download them on my iPad because I am an iPad kid to my core. And yeah, sometimes I'll re-download them, but since deleting them, it's interesting to think about the times when I have an impulse to post. Like, I was recently at a concert, and all I wanted to do was I re-downloaded Instagram to post
why
photos.
did you want to post? So did you want to, this is just,
Yeah.
did you want to not prove to people, but did you kind of want people to kind of think you had a life in that sense? That I would find, especially a few years ago, I would really find myself posting things with my friends and really kind of for the purpose of saying to other people like, hey, I'm having a good time, I have friends.
Yeah.
Or posting a nice picture of myself to portray like, oh, look, like I look pretty, or do you know what I mean? And it wasn't like for myself, it was purely for other people.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think
the
wind
windows.
is battering.
Yeah.
Social media is such an interesting thing where it, started as a connectivity thing. Like, I don't know, Facebook, it started as like a weird dating app, but that's a whole other story. It's something that connects people. You can, talk to relatives on the other side of the world and all those things, and that's amazing. And update people, like, oh my god, I had a baby. Oh my god, I'm getting married. Like, that's
and it's like,
exciting,
oh
and
my
that's
god,
really sweet.
yeah.
But
the FOMO.
Everyone knows that social media is a highlight reel. Everyone knows that. You say that all the time. Like, you're posting the best part of yourselves, and therefore everyone is posting the best part of themselves.
Exactly, because you don't want to be the one who doesn't.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely could feel this impulse to post, and it was like approving myself. Like, I have a life. I go to cool concerts.
Yeah, like I'm cool.
I'm cool.
It's not even like I have a life. It's like you wanna build your character on a platform.
Yes.
So what I post on Instagram, I like to think is like a collation of, is that the right word? Collation of all the kind of images that I think kind of embody me, which in some ways is positive, but some ways is negative, because that's the idealistic version of me that's all kind of like happy, floaty, naturey, fun. When in reality it's not like that at all. And
that's like a part of your life.
Yeah.
Those are highlights. Exactly.
Incredibly anxious, there's so many other parts, and it's I think people forget that. And even I find myself looking at other people's feeds being like, oh my god, like they have so many friends, or it seems like they have such good life, or they wear all these really cool clothes, and I get jealous, or I get FOMO.
Yeah.
Maybe not as much FOMO anymore, but when I was younger, especially when I was at secondary school, 16, 15, 14, all those kind of ages, when you used to be able to see people on Snap Maps, and I don't know why, but it's like a thing when you're younger to like post with your friends and like make other people jealous, or maybe or it's just kind of like there's this pressure around it because you're young and you're desperately trying to build your character. I used to feel so isolated in the sense that, like, even though I did have friends, when I would see a whole bunch of other people hanging out, some of which who I might have been friends with, I would have thought, oh my god, I'm a loser.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. So I think, the point being that social media amplifies your loneliness, because you are comparing yourself to people. So yeah, that is I think one of the reasons maybe that Gen Z's
including ourselves,
is feeling more lonely, and it's it's all that comparison and feeling the FOMO, feeling left out of stuff.
And we're glued. I think we get a lot of dopamine, and this kind of leads nicely onto the next thing that I think we wanted to mention was that this tea has gone really like bitter.
My tea tastes great.
We left it too long. Is that we get a lot of our like dopamine and a lot of almost like our socializing we get through online.
Mm-hmm.
So even just activities like watching things, or we spend at home, and most of the time, or for a lot of us and for a lot of people, it's online.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're texting people, FaceTiming people, just like at home. Even when most of the time I work from home. So even though you're speaking to people online or you're texting people, we don't do the things that previous generations did in terms of we don't like, when you go to like a village, you walk in the countryside and you walk past everyone, and every person you walk past, it's like, oh, good morning.
Mm-hmm.
And you speak to strangers and you go out more, and you have so much more interactions with your community.
Yeah.
Because that's like how people used to socialize. Of course we still socialize that way, but we didn't have this escape of our phones that we could use constantly. We actually had to speak to people in real life.
I think being from the UK, it's not, you don't really, sometimes in some instances you will speak to people, but we live in London specifically, where you're not talking to people on a tube. That's weird.
That's weird. If you do that, you're weird.
That's a, I don't know.
Or even like
into a social pariah.
Yeah.
Oh, that person's talking to strangers.
Yeah, and you're kind of automatically a bit kind of like, stay away from. I think I spilled tea on myself.
I think in the States, when I've been to New York, people do just like talk to each other.
Really?
A bit more, yeah. But also everyone there seems slightly more eccentric. But maybe that's because I was there on holiday. Like it's a different vibe. But
I tend to find because you get older generations, they chat to each other so much more, and usually when I do interact with strangers and stuff like that, they do tend to be older people.
Yes, yeah.
But those small interactions are what makes community in kind of in a larger scale. Having those kind of moments with strangers, complimenting people, starting up a conversation if you're interested in, like, I don't know, what if they're doing something that you're like, oh, what do you, I don't know, it's difficult to give an example. But often when I'm doing like field work and stuff, people ask what I'm doing, and it strikes up a nice conversation. And it's always nice, it's kind of nice to chat to strangers in a purely innocent, like, I feel like I'm digging myself a hole here, but like it's nice to be able to talk to other people of the community, and it's just kind of
it's just two things I think that were interesting there. Firstly, it is easier to talk to older people. Like I'm very socially anxious, like I do not want to talk to strangers ever, but when I do talk to strangers, it is older people, and I wonder why that is. I wonder if it's because
they're a lot more open to it.
More open to it. I think they like talking to like a younger person. But I wonder if there's an element of, that you're never going to see this person again. You're never going to talk to this person again because
you're maybe a young person you would.
Or as a young person, if you're like, even in London, it feels like a lot of the time everyone knows everyone sometimes. So
and I hate that.
Yeah, that is stressful. So it's like, why delve into that potential of building a community with someone your own age when you know the people you already know. I think there's two things as well. So I think that we've talked a lot about community in person, and we will obviously come back to this.
Circle back, yeah.
But it's really interesting having grown up with the internet, like the ways that people build communities online.
Yeah.
Because
oh my god, yeah.
I was never really part of that in particular, but we went to school with people who had online followings in some way, or like they were big on Tumblr or whatever.
Thousands of followers,
on Tumblr, and found specific niches where they were able to build communities. And I feel like there's two sides to this where it can be really powerful, because if you're if you're a queer person who lives somewhere where that doesn't necessarily feel safe, then finding people online to
in a
talk
safe
to
community
is going to feel great.
is amazing, and that is a sense of community.
Yeah, and also if you feel slightly, every teenager feels a little bit strange, I think. I don't know, maybe that's wrong, but I feel like most people, when you're young, you're going through all these emotions.
Definitely,
and it's
especially
easy
if you
to
are
turn to
queer
online.
as well.
Yeah.
If you're queer or neurodivergent or actually anyone, even if you're
whatever your hobby, it might just feel strange, and therefore you turn to people online. And I think that is definitely a positive thing. But maybe but I do think we're focusing on the like, let's also talk to people in real life. I think.
Yeah, I think it's about finding a balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's so hard to, because you and I know that you and I do this. We shut ourselves off sometimes, and I don't know. We live such a virtual world that sometimes I forget that, like, that is not, I don't know, it kind of, when you think about the digital world, it kind of like messes with my head a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, in terms of like, how is that even a thing? Like, not to get silly or anything, but like, how did they who the fuck invented like electric, like what? I'm really confused. And like, how the hell are we filming this right now? How is this not like witchcraft?
How is this not witchcraft? So
I don't get this, like, what? Like, we should all just be foraging, and there should be no sorry, I'm chatting so shit because I'm nervous.
You've distracted me completely.
Sorry, I kind of struggled a bit there.
Yeah.
But speaking to people, I think,
Well, it can be scary. I'll tell two anecdotes.
Okay.
One where I remember for our first year of uni, for undergrad, was 2020. We started in September 2020, so COVID year.
Yeah,
so
we didn't do our A-levels.
We did our A-levels. So for me, all of my first year was online, pretty much. I had like one thing in person right at the beginning of the year. And then it might have been towards the end of the year where there were a couple lectures in person. Or it might have even been the beginning of second year. Doesn't really matter. Either way, the point being that I didn't know anyone from my course. I wasn't friends with anyone from my course. And even looking back, I only had one friend I have two friends I made, and I did two separate courses. I did econ and I did history. I have one econ friend and one history friend, and that's it. That's crazy. All of my friends are people, who lived near me, because we were all sort of isolated together and all these things. So I was very much forced by proximity to be friends, and we're all still friends. That's great.
Yeah.
But the point being, really early on, or one of the first in-person things I went to, I went into this huge lecture hall. It was for econ, so it was a pretty big group, and I was terrified. I didn't know anyone.
It's so daunting.
I had to go and sit next to someone.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, there's like a group of girls over there. I am gonna go and sit next to them and just like strike up a conversation.
That's really.
No, it didn't work though. I said hi, and she went hi, turned away, and then turned around and talked to her friends. And I was like, oh, okay.
That is so.
And that was a really
rude.
That was such an unfortunate start, and obviously that
Yeah, that would have been like a knife to the chest.
Yeah.
What the hell?
No, it was crazy, and like I think, you can't let that deter you from making friends going forward, because not everyone's going to be like that.
Not everyone is nice. That's another thing.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary out here. Like, some people.
It is.
Just like have no social anxiety, and good for them.
Or just
I'm so
don't
jealous.
give a fuck.
Or just don't give a fuck, and they can go through life not feeling hurt by those things. But if you're like me, that makes you deeply embarrassed, and clearly I still remember it to this day.
Yeah, it was something that not traumatized you, but yeah, it stuck with you. It stuck with you. Yeah,
but also,
people aren't kind enough.
That's another massive point.
She might have thought, "Ooh, who's this weird girl sitting next to me?" But in reality, it's not you. You're not. You're actually just nice, friendly, and wanted to make friends. You're in that, and especially at uni, that's like so normal.
Yeah.
But she might have kind of not grown up with that idea, or kind of like been surrounded with that idea that like who the hell would do that?
Yeah.
When that's actually a really normal thing, and that's how you make friends.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Or that's how you just make connections, or I enjoy having conversations with strangers. The guy I sat on the plane with when I went away, like a week ago.
Oh, right.
We had a nice little chat.
Oh.
And it was just nice.
Yeah.
But then I was like, I want to go to bed. Put my head tell the other side, because I just couldn't be bothered to
Yeah.
hold like a 2-hour conversation, which is fair. But just little things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it happened, but I once randomly started talking to the woman next to me on the train coming back home from uni,
Yeah,
and I sat and spoke to her for the whole train ride, which was about 2.5 hours.
and that's really nice.
And I don't know how, I don't know how we struck up conversation. I think, who knows if she commented on the book I was reading or what. And I don't think I was really in the mood for that, because I love trains.
Yeah,
I love
that's
sitting
like
on a train.
special time.
I love sitting on a train reading a book. So I, at the start I was like, I hope she stops talking to me soon.
Yeah.
But, we just had this really interesting conversation. And I, I hope she'll always remember it. I'll always remember it. But I'm never going to see her again. But it's like a really nice moment of like just building something, learning something from someone else's point of view.
I did that recently with a woman on a bus, this lovely lady. I don't remember I think she asked me when the bus was coming or something. And then we struck up a really nice conversation, and she was talking about how she went to did yoga at the community centre, and that I should come along.
Aww.
And obviously I was like, yeah, of course. And I did genuinely think about it. But then I got off the bus a couple hours later, and I'm like, oh, I'm probably not going to be asked to go and actually go and but she would have been such a lovely friend. And she was probably about 50, and she had kids and whatever. But it was just such a nice, random kind of little short-lived friendship for a bus journey. But it really, again, it sticks with you. And those are the kind of interactions you need in your life that just not only build your confidence, but give you a little bit of happiness boost.
I think those sort of things fill your cup.
They fill your cup.
Because your friends are your friends, and you love your friends, and I love my friends, but there's, you don't see your friends every day, but you see strangers every day.
And they make your community.
Yeah. They give you those little moments of...
They give you those little moments of joy.
Joy.
And hope.
And learning. You can learn so much from other people. This older woman I sat on the train talking to, she had a trans son, and she was just I just don't understand it. And so I from my cisgender point of view, I was trying to explain to her these different ideas, and then I made the mistake of trying to explain what non-binary was, and she just couldn't
sometimes
wrap her head around
for
it.
some people it's a step too far.
But by the end of it, I think she was she was wrapping her head around it, and I noticed throughout the conversation her misgendering her son less, which she wasn't
that's really you could have made a massive difference to his and her life.
I think it wasn't from a place of animosity. I think she really wanted, as the conversation went along, she just really wanted a young person to try and explain these things to her.
Who wasn't
was her son.
Who wasn't her son, or maybe was also kind of not transgender in the sense that someone who was more similar to her in that respect. Yeah, and
I think hopefully she learned something from that.
And I'm sure she did.
Her. She was an English teacher. She was a lovely, sweet lady.
That's lovely.
So yeah. I feel like we should change the topic of this episode to be talk to strangers.
Yeah, talk. I think I was about to give one more. A few weeks ago, I was going to see our friend on the bus, and it's a long bus journey, and buses are slow. Buses, they have to stick to a schedule. So sometimes they wait at bus stops, and if you're getting the bus, you're probably going to be late, or you have to expect to be delayed. It's just the way of the bus. At least in London, I don't know, you don't get the bus if you're in a rush on the way to work. It's old ladies get on the bus come by. So I was on the bus, and this guy who was maybe 25, 27, 28, he was getting really annoyed at the bus driver, and going up to the bus driver and be why are you waiting? Why don't you may as well go instead of holding everyone up? And he was getting then he would go out to smoke his cigarette for a minute, and then come back in when the bus was ready to go. But he was making a bit of a scene. He was so I could tell he wasn't aggressive, but he was acting a bit aggressive. So I just said to him this is the way of the bus. You just need to relax a little bit, chill. Because I said, do you normally get the bus? And he said no. He said no, I usually drive. But he was caught he was caught I don't know if he got his car taken away, basically.
Okay.
That's all we need to know. So I was well, there you go. Don't act illegal. and then you won't have to get on a slow bus. But it was
Yeah.
also just like, you know, you just need to chill out a little bit more. And he was like, do you know what? You're probably right. And I just need to, thank you for talking to me. Da, da, da. And I was like, oh, that's okay. I probably came off really like, he asked me if I was a primary school teacher.
You give primary school
I
teacher
know.
vibes, and that's a compliment.
Well, I took it as a compliment, but
Yeah.
I didn't, at the
He
moment, I
might
was
not
like,
have meant it as one.
yeah, because I was probably the way I was talking. But sometimes people do just need a little bit of advice or a little bit of. There's been times when I've been crying on the train, and I'm just like, oh, I wish someone would just ask if I'm okay. Do you know what I mean?
I had that the other day. There was a woman sat outside my house, like sobbing,
Oh no!
and I was like, I kept poking my head out the window, but she was on the phone, so I didn't approach her.
Something sad was
But
probably happening.
I was like, oh my god, it's
yeah.
difficult and tricky
Mhm.
because it comes back
'Cause
to
do they
like, the
wanna be
isolation
talked
thing
to?
of like in public.
Could they
You're
tell
in
you
a
to
public
fuck off?
space, but
Yeah.
yeah, you're in a public space, but being on your phone makes you feel completely alone. Like she obviously didn't. Everyone was staring at her as they walked past, but she wasn't paying attention to that because she was on her phone. I don't know. Don't know where the link
No,
is there. but-
I understand. I understand what you mean. We isolate ourselves by you, and we're always on our phones anyway. So
Yeah.
how can we even make conversations with strangers
Yeah.
when we shut ourselves off from the world? We're indoors. We shut ourselves up. Well, we open ourselves up maybe.
Yeah.
But then we leave the house and we just glued to our phones and shut off from the real world, which is
Yeah.
maybe what matters.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, like, I'm sure you use headphones as well as a signal of like,
Don't talk to me. Yeah.
and I 100% think that's fine. Like, as a woman walking around a city, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's okay to take the headphones off and talk to strangers.
Yeah. When you feel safe. I think we've missed a massive point of like
When you feel safe, yeah.
especially as a woman.
Yeah.
There's fine lines with all these kind of, or things that, you know, like sometimes people don't feel safe making conversation or starting with random people, but there are loads of people who, like the old lady on the bus, like she's pretty innocent. Do you know what I mean?
I think there's a really interesting thing as well of like we have to learn from quite a young age
yeah,
when something just feels off, and you do have to trust your gut.
it really is in
If
your
someone
gut.
starts talking to you and you're like, this feels, you haven't said anything sinister,
But
it
you just
feels
have
off.
this
It feels
something,
wrong.
yeah. And 99% of the time, it's a male
Yeah.
who's talking to you. So yeah, that's probably a different podcast episode that we can really deep dive into. I don't know how long we've been talking for. I'm just trying
About 30 minutes.
Okay, so this might be good. Oh yeah, it says there.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna wrap this one up,
Alright,
guys.
so moral of the story: talk to strangers.
Talk to strangers when you feel safe.
When you-
This is just, I don't know if that's not come. Yeah.
It's not from very full circle, but
Don't isolate yourself,
yourself,
basically.
yes.
Think of the community around you and all the connections you can make, even if it is just chatting to a mum on the train or an old woman on the bus. You know, chat to people.
Chat to people.
Or an aggressive man on the bus.
Not if he's too aggressive, but
Not if he's too aggressive. Yeah. So I think that's something that really is meaningful to us. Anyway.
Well, this has been our first podcast episode.
This has been our first podcast episode. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed and listened.
Yeah, so it's a short one.
Short one, yeah.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah. See you
and
next time.
He'll probably be back.